morning. I think we're actually ahead of schedule, so that means I get more time to talk about industrial today. I'm here to give the DFW industrial update. I work for Hillwood, the master planner and developer of Valliance, Texas. When asked to Google Gemini how to describe the 2025 U.S. business climate in one word, it was just said it was turbulent. And I think turbulent describes what we saw in Alliance, Texas all year long. In January and February of 2025, we saw some of the highest activity levels from a survey and lease increase standpoint that we've seen since 2021. That almost ground to a complete halt in February and in April as Trump's Liberation Day and tariffs began to take effect. What happened next, we were not prepared for. We started to see firsthand the resurgence of the U.S. manufacturing in Alliance, Texas, and across DFW. What has historically been, especially in Alliance, Texas, a logistics and distribution market truly started to shift. We went from 75 to 85% of all inquiry levels being logistics, distribution, and e-commerce to that being manufacturing, production, and assembly by the midway point of the year. By the end of the year, we had our second best leasing square footage year in the history of Alliance, Texas on the industrial front. And as we look into 2026, we have 2.3 million square feet under construction today with plans to break ground at another 2 million square feet by the end of February, which would have us with over 4 million square feet under construction at one time, and spec industrial product could be the most Hillwood has ever had under construction at one time in Alliance, Texas. We're very excited for 2026. And with that, I'll start going through some of the statistics themselves. When we look at turbulent in 2025, public policy uncertainty was a big discussion point with all of our users. How can you make corporate real estate decisions right now, given the changes daily by Twitter or Trump Social? AI was accountable, by some metrics, AI was accountable for 92% of GDP growth in the first half of the year. We got to see that firsthand, not just in the data center development space, but really in the data center component space to drive this development going forward, to drive this AI data center development moving forward. We got to see all the components and the production pieces that go into building these data centers. The White House claims $9.6 trillion in total foreign investment commitments in 2025. We're getting to see that firsthand. Wistron that came to Alliance was largely driven by their contract manufacturer for NVIDIA. NVIDIA made a $500 billion commitment to invest in the United States. Both of those facilities are in Alliance, Texas. And then lastly, the stock market. I don't know if when you look at the year, the government shutdown and everything that happened, that anyone would have predicted. We saw the double-digit gains across the entire U.S. stock market. So why is DFW seeing this? And I know it's been hit on by a couple others already, but of course population growth. Some estimates take it over 8.5 million people already in DFW today, going to 12.4 million by 2050. And Fort Worth, of course, which I believe was already hit on as well, Fort Worth surpassed a million people in 2025. DFW became the number 2 data center market in the United States. And power availability with all these manufacturing and production requirements became the biggest conversation we had with every user. Both of those Wistron facilities will have over 40 megawatts each in the building. So while they are manufacturing, that is a lot of power. That being able to locate that and confirm that we can get that is key to landing these additional manufacturing requirements that come through. DFW Airport, with Wistron announcing their 2 facilities in Alliance, there now is a direct flight from Taipei, and DFW is the second busiest airport in the world now by passenger volume. The connection with Mexico early on in 2025, there was a lot of discussion. Trump had a lot of discussion on USMCA agreements and what that looks like moving forward. We continue to see a lot of activity from the large production nodes in northern and central Mexico, bringing in rail product via the BNSF Intermodal and Alliance, and then expanding large distribution networks in Alliance versus doing that closer to the border. 2 big Senate bills were passed this year that that we have really kept a close eye on, one being Senate Bill 17, which of course restricts certain foreign governments from owning and leasing space in the state of Texas for more than a year. And then Senate Bill 22, which was a huge win, which I'm sure will be touched on here by the panel a little bit later, which continued to incentivize the TV production with over $300 million committed, totaling over $1.5 billion through 2035. And then, of course, one of the things that we now have on every single of our decks is talking through the city of Fort Worth being awarded the fastest and most efficient permitting city in the United States. That's something that you don't see in large cities, and most of the customers and clients that do come to see us, when you look at the size of Fort Worth, the mentality that Fort Worth has that we are a manufacturing town, we want your business, and we want to help you get up and running fast is a huge piece to selling that story. DFW is a number 2 market in the United States in industrial square footage to Chicago. Chicago's 1.4 billion square feet. We should surpass Chicago in the next 10 years. 10 years ago, DFW was only the number 5 largest market in the United States, so we've seen significant growth even through COVID and then even these last 2 years. In 2025, under construction product, almost 40 million, we finished the year at 40 million square feet. That's up from 27 million square feet at the end of 2024, so that's starting to tick up again. And then absorption, we're number 1 in the United States with a little under 28 million square feet of positive absorption. That's now 3 straight years we've led the nation in overall absorption, and we continue to be a bright spot across the United States. It marks 15 years of positive net absorption for the DFW industrial market, as 8.1 million square feet of positive net absorption happened in just the 4th quarter alone of 2025. So this goes back 10 years vacancy. Vacancy dropped this year from our lowest point ever, which was the 5.1% in 2021. Of course, we went up to our highest point last year at 9.5% when I talked through this last year, and now we're back down to 8.9. So not as much leasing activity as some people would like, but certainly headed in the right direction as we go into 2026. We have an average of 8.1% vacancy across, in the last 25 years within DFW. So we're starting to trend towards getting back to that metric. Net deliveries in 2026, we should start to see that invert again, with that likely going over 30 million square feet in 2026. And then really the final quarter of the year, through all the turbulence of 2025, it's that last quarter of 2025 that I think finally started to see a ton of real estate decision makers on the large corporations make decisions and make decisions quickly. Again, in the final quarter, we saw just under 17 million square feet of total leasing activity in DFW. This was the largest quarterly total since Q2 of 2021, which was, of course, at the peak of the COVID pandemic and when the e-commerce groups were taking as much square footage as they possibly could. 35.1% of that leasing activity was manufacturing. That's across DFW. So that number continues to go up and is a consistent theme across my slides. 4 leases were signed over 1 million square feet in that same 4th quarter, 3 of which were in South and East Dallas. And so while DFW, or while Alliance, Texas was the number 2 submarket in net absorption, South Dallas won with their 3 large deals that got signed at the end of the year. U.S. e-commerce sales, of course, you have your huge spike there in 2021 as COVID had its impact on how we were buying and purchasing items. We're still seeing consistent, steady growth in e-commerce sales. Really from 21, 22, 23, your large e-commerce users were taking more square footage than they ever have. And these last 2 years, they almost completely ground to a halt. Except very unique locations across the country, the large e-commerce companies were not taking additional square footage. We're finally seeing them come back into the market. So after a 2-year hiatus, we are starting to see those groups come back and come back in a big way. Rent growth, while down, of course, from our historic peak in 2022, 2023, we are still trending favorably from a U.S. metric. I do think with that leasing activity, that over 16 million square feet that happened in Q4 and a lot of large transactions, we are going to start to see rent growth accelerate in the first half of 2026. There simply just is not enough supply in the bulk side of the market right now, and the rent growth will really be seen in that largest size range. These are the under construction statistics, and we're really right on line with the 10-year average in DFW at 40 million square feet as we finish the year. Of course, down from the peak in 22, which was over 80 million square feet, but still very healthy. I do think we're going to see that number really tick up this year as all this additional bulk activity to close out the year happened. We're going to see new bulk products start in the first half of the year, which will drive that construction number up in 2026. One of the most interesting things is that there's 115 total industrial buildings under construction in DFW right now. Only 15 of those are over 400,000 square feet. So capital really pushed for infill, shallow bay industrial locations in the 100 to 300,000 square foot range. We saw a lot of those go up the last 2 years in very limited bulk activity. We really think that's going to flip here. Your largest vacancy metrics are now in that 100 to 300,000 square foot range. And again, rent growth in that bulk size because of the limited supply and the lack of construction of it the last 2 years is going to start to accelerate here in 2026. This is by building count. We don't do it by square footage because it, of course, is heavily skewed by the million square foot buildings. But this just shows from a building count standpoint, again, that it's under 400,000 square feet that has been built and being built right now in the last 2 years in DFW. Greater Tarrant County. Greater Tarrant County finished with 19.6 million square feet of positive net absorption. That would make just Greater Tarrant County the number 4 submarket in the United States from a positive absorption standpoint. 19.6 million square feet, under construction, 11.35 million square foot of net absorption, which would put it the number 4 market by itself in the United States. We're going to start focusing. We're not focusing on every single submarket. There's too many deals now. In previous years, Reed and Tony with Hillwood would go through every single deal that happened in all of DFW, and there's simply too many now. So now we have to pick and choose. And so if yours was left out, I do apologize. Alliance, Texas is the largest submarket in DFW. And DFW is the second largest industrial market in the United States. So the importance of Alliance, Texas, from a global logistics standpoint, it's really never been greater. 93 million square feet total, 8.5 million square feet under construction here at the end of the year. Hillwood is 2.3 million square feet of that. So a lot of other groups are building alongside us. And then we were the number 2 submarket from net absorption standpoint at 4.6 million square feet. Number 2 to South Dallas, again, because of the slew of big deals that were signed at the end of 2025. Highlight a few deals here. Again, the Alliance Airport's there in the middle. Wistron, I brought that up earlier, but that's a Taiwanese contract manufacturer for NVIDIA. They acquired 2 buildings in Alliance over 1 million square feet. That'll be adding 800 jobs, over $760 million total investments, and that truly is a game changer from an advanced manufacturing standpoint. The additional Taiwanese manufacturer interest we've seen since this deal was announced continues to surprise us in a big way. It was hit on earlier, but SGS Studios, and it will be talked about more here later on the panel. But of course, that's the largest TV production facility in the state of Texas. We leased 2 buildings. We leased 2 buildings to them, and we're very excited. They filmed season 2 of Mann in there, which just wrapped up and was a exciting season. North Point, this is just to the north of the BNSF Intermodal. North Point did 2 large transactions, a 1.25 million square foot build-to-suit for Lennox, and then a little bit over 500,000 square foot lease with Rivian. The interesting component there, again, it ties back to some of the connection with the northern and central Mexico manufacturing and production corridors. Both of these groups have significant manufacturing facilities in and around Monterey, and so the ability to bring in their produced goods via the BNSF Intermodal and then go straight to their facility and then ship out kind of domestically from there was the reason that they chose to locate here. Northlake, so we're north of the Texas Motor Speedway. There are 3 projects here that I'll highlight, but 2 large projects. So DHL, Excel Logistics. I'm already over time. Does it just keep beeping? Okay, I'm going to go fast now. So DHL is under construction on 1.4 million square feet. 1 of 3 million square foot buildings under construction. Clarion is starting 1.7 million square feet here midway through the year, all in Northlake. It's another million square foot building. Alliance Industrial built 4 buildings. One's been leased, one's been sold, all in the town of Northlake. We're going fast. Mercantile. Mercantile saw 2 really large transactions. Aries leased additional square footage to Lego. I've got 5 minutes. Okay. I can do that. 699,000 square feet. That puts Lego's total square footage in Mercantile at over 3 million square feet. Cyclics leased 564,000 square feet from Prologis right on 35W. Lincoln and Step Investments are under construction on phase 2 of their project with 3 new buildings right off 35W. Okay, we're going west. While this is a small submarket today, we do think we're going to see some significant growth on the industrial and manufacturing front in West Fort Worth going into 2026 from Walsh Ranch, Veal Ranch, and then Hyde Ranch, and then Majestic's additional square footage they can build around the million square foot building they built in West Fort Worth. We do think that's going to see some significant growth in 26 and see some projects begin. Forefront's under construction on a 4-building project over 900,000 square feet in West Fort Worth with great activity currently. This is Hyde Ranch just to the west of Majestic. You can see the Majestic Google million square foot building there. Majestic can build significant additional square footage around that building, so we do think with all the bulk activity in the market, they will likely start on 1 or 2 additional buildings this year. Heading south, South Fort Worth is the number 2 under construction submarket in all of DFW right now. So a lot of under construction product in South Fort Worth, which is great to see. You've got 4 under construction large scale projects right now. You got PGM with Holt Lunsford, Brookfield, Alto's building a 2-building project right on 35W, and then Artemis with Ascendance building 1 of 3 million square foot buildings under construction in DFW right now. To the left is Carter Crossing. That's Holt, 3-building project. Biggest one's a little over 700,000 square feet. And then Frontier Commerce Park is Brookfield, 5-building project. Both of these are spec projects, so it'll be interesting to see the lease up of those. Hillwood completed 2 buildings this year in South Fort Worth, Dick's Distribution Center and a Continental Tire Distribution Center in South Fort Worth. Continental just opened right before the end of the year, and then Ascendant with Artemis is under construction on a 1 million square foot building in South Fort Worth. That should finish here at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year. That's 3 under construction millions in all of DFW right now with only 2 existing availables. That's down from our peak of 18 available 1 million square foot buildings at the end of 23. So we've kind of come full circle again. My whole discussion from the beginning is bulk will start again in a big way in 2026. These were my 25 predictions. I didn't do great, but my lens was from end of January last year, which that was before a lot of the trade discussions got going and Liberation Day. So January and February were very exciting for us to then have a lot of that ground to a halt. We did not see 4 new millions start construction last year. We only saw 2, and then we still have 2 existing availables. I said 0 on the west side of the Metroplex. From a vacancy rate standpoint, we did go down. We didn't go down as much as I thought. I will give myself the last one. We did see with all of the discussion around trade, tariffs, and Liberation Day, the additional manufacturing we saw in Alliance, Texas, and continue to see across DFW is very, very exciting. I will get in. 26, I'm literally saying the same thing again. We're going to get 4 that start on the west side this year. I'll just keep repeating it until 1 year it'll be right. Vacancy rate, I do think we're going to significantly fall again with all that slew of leasing activity. We haven't seen those numbers really pop into net absorption yet, and so vacancy rate should fall in a big way because of how much square footage was leased at the end of the year. Annual rent, again, big buildings all getting leased, rent growth should go up, especially the first half of this year in the large category. Absorption will go back over 30 million square feet. We haven't been there in 3 years. And last, I'm going to say A&M is going to finally beat the University of Texas since 2010. But thank you, guys. And last but not least, I do want to say thank you to the Hillwood team that helps me put all of this together. And then I get to introduce Todd Burnett and Candy Camp with JLL to talk about the office market. Thank you.